good morning on-site. So glad to see you here Monday morning. It's good to be together. We'll be together for a full day today learning from Justin Sinceri. So let me just say, I like to listen to podcasts, and I drive a lot between all the places that I'm trying to go, just as many of you drive a lot, and I'm not a music person, I'm a podcast person. And so I was one day searching for a new therapy podcast, because sometimes I'm just in the mood to learn and think about therapeutic things while I'm driving. And came across Justin's podcast, the Polyvagal Theory, Polyvagal Podcast. And he focused on the part that I started with was when you were focusing on speaking about working with children in schools. And I was like, whoa, here's a therapist who understands what it is to be in a school system, to have the different desires of the different various people in the school system, be working with a child who could be triggered or not or shut down, and being able to do good therapy both with the child and think systemically about the schools. So really got me kind of hooked in there. Since then, you've done neat things on parenting, and there's just all sorts of interesting information as I listen to the podcast. So through my Apple iTunes search, we've come to today, and we've got Justin Sinceri with the Polyvagal Podcast here to talk to us about polyvagal theory. Thank you for being here.
Hey everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? I don't like microphones, so as long as you can hear me, we're good. Anybody else as nervous as I am? Just me? Okay. So I work as a mental health clinician. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. Is everyone here MFT, by the way? Or any LCSWs or social work track or anything like that?
LPC.
All right. Cool. All right. I work primarily with, I have one second grader, but most of my work is with high schoolers, and I'm in a continuation high school. Any more high schoolers here? It's a continuation high school. These are kids that have to catch up on credits, have been expelled from the previous school or from another district, and they go to this continuation high school. And these are the kids that I meet with. Before this, I've worked in substance abuse with teenagers mostly. Actually, all my career, the past 10 years or so, have been with teenagers. Doing family work, parenting work, a lot of parenting. Every year I do a parenting group in some form or another. I work with younger kids in outpatients county. I've worked with substance abuse treatment, residential and outpatient, mostly nonprofits. I did one 6-month stint in Palo Alto, which is a much more affluent community. And that was a much different experience than working with the population I work with in Stockton, or in Eastside San Jose, or was it in San Francisco? Much different population. So the past 10 years, that's kind of what my career has looked like. About, I think it was last July, I was doing research on trauma because I didn't feel like I was doing a good enough job. And I wanted to figure out, what am I missing here? There's a certain segment of kids, teenagers I was working with, ones that are very, very shut down, very much depressed or stay very dissociative in particular, where I didn't feel like I was being very effective. And so I thought, well, I better do some research on this during my summer off from just working with kids. And so I researched trauma. Just like I'm gonna start from the bottom, like I assume I know nothing, what's out there? And I stumbled across something called somatic experiencing from Peter Levine. A lot of that is in here. But then from there, it went to something called the Polyvagal Theory from Dr. Stephen Porges. And once I heard him lecture and talk, it's for free on YouTube, the light bulbs just like went off constantly. And it was the missing piece, in my opinion, to everything I have been doing, and really understanding how trauma affects the body, why we stay stuck in trauma, and how to work with it more effectively. So that's kind of how this came about. Sorry, I'm going to get super dry here. Anybody heard of Polyvagal Theory? Hey, oh really? Where'd you hear about it from? I'm really excited about that.
You.
Who said it? You said you?
I
Oh, I.
No, I found your podcast too. And
Awesome.
Yeah. I follow you on Instagram and stuff. I was like, oh my god! I never knew.
It's exciting, all right. So Polyvagal Theory.
That's what they told me that.
So I probably over-prepared for today. This is, we're doing role plays all day. You two are up first, come on up. I probably over-prepared. I have a ton of information. Luckily, I talk pretty fast, so I think we'll be able to squeeze it all in. But before we get into that, as a large group, why does therapy help? Like, what is it we're doing that actually helps? Have you asked yourself that question? When you sit down and listen and talk, like, what is that doing? Why does that help? And I really want to hear a couple answers.
Initially, the connection and the rapport between you and the client.
Absolutely. Well, we know that's a key piece as to what helps, right? But why? Like, what's the mechanism? Why does that help? Like, why would rapport help someone to do better? Safety. Are you familiar with Polyvagal Theory? Yeah, it has a lot to do with safety. We'll get more and more into that. Go ahead.
I kind of refer to it as just being able to file away information. So rather than it being right here in front of us and we're looking at it all day long, it's like taking it and putting it into the little filing cabinet, and it's still there, but we're not looking at it all day long. So as we talk through it, we process it, put it into that little filing cabinet,
Yeah.
we can refer to later on, but it's not affecting us on a daily basis.
But it's kind of like tucked away in there. Kind of like that. It's kind of like the idea of planting seeds. And I think with the kids I've worked with, that's been a big metaphor. Is we're not going to cure them or whatever, but we can plant seeds, and that's a big part of that. Kind of what you're saying, that it's going to be in there and it will bloom at some point.
Whether it's negative or positive. So the negative, the trauma that's happened, for say,
Oh,
for example, like we're looking at it on a daily basis. It's right there. We're ruminating about it. And so as we process and talk through it, and we develop those different highways, then we're able to take that and kind of store it away. And it's still there, but it's not affecting us, our functioning on a daily basis. I think it's being able to file it away.
Okay. So as we move forward, I want you to keep this question in your mind. It's like, what we're doing, why does this actually help? Or how does it actually help? But before we even go further, I really, 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 really want everyone to put their needs first. I say this, or I have a co-host, by the way, Mercedes. We say this at the beginning of every podcast, is please put yourself first. We're talking about trauma. I know we're all therapists, or on some level, working directly with students. We're supposed to have our stuff together, but I know that may not be 100% true at all times, and I respect that, but I need you to put yourself first. So as we talk about trauma, if you need to get up and get some water, go ahead. Like, you have my permission. Don't ask. Just take care of yourself, please. So as I go forward, I don't go into trauma details. It's not super necessary to understand trauma. This is no shock value stuff whatsoever. I personally don't like when we go to a trauma presentation and there's a ton of shock value, and they say, have a good day. And I'm like, what is that? How did that help me? Like, you scared the heck out of us, but what am I left with? So there's zero shock value here. But use the restroom, use a fidget. We have fidgets up here. I'll put them over here. Something to squeeze, I think, is a great thing if you need it. There are these little metal things which are fun, but if you're too noisy, we're gonna take them away from you. But if you need to click a pen or tap your leg or whatever you gotta do, take some deep breaths if you need to. But please just put yourself first, okay? You're allowed to use your phones. And actually, I really want you to, or if you have a laptop, that's fine as well. Go right now actually. Go to polev.com and then enter that code in when it prompts you. This is a very interactive, there's no role play, I'm not gonna make you look it up here. But this is very interactive. This is not me just talking and you listening and taking notes. I would really prefer you take this more on an experiential level. Yeah. So when you go to this and log in, it's gonna automatically, the screen will change automatically based on what I have up here. And there's going to be some polling that I do throughout this. And when it gets to the next poll, it should automatically switch. So we'll just go there, we'll stay there, we're not doing anything quite yet. So why is the polyvagal theory important? To me, it's to understand trauma better. There's a lot of information about trauma out there, but polyvagal theory is the first one, in my opinion, to really explain it in a different paradigm. It creates a very easy common language. Now, the presentation and the books on polyvagal theory are not easy to understand. Dr. Portis's lectures are easy enough to kind of take and reword. That's kind of what I took it upon myself to do, is this is fantastic information, but the parents I work with are not going to get this. The kids I work with are not going to get this. So can I translate this in a way that makes sense? And that's kind of what I focused on doing. This will be able to better understand the motivations of the people that we serve. And I think a huge one is to understand our own internal states differently. Trauma, let me check something real quick. So trauma stats. Just real quick, 1 in 5 Americans was sexually molested as a child. 1 in 4 was beaten by a parent to the point of a mark being left on their body. 1 in 3 couples engaged in physical violence. 25% of us grew up with alcoholic relatives, and 1 out of 8 witnessed their mother being beaten or hit. Have you read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk? It's all from there. So what is trauma? What explanations or what wording, how does trauma, how would you describe that? Just based on what you know already. No wrong answers.
When a particular event, usually negative, kind of overwhelms the body's capacity to cope.
Good. Anybody else? Good one shot. So it's the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event. It's not the event itself. I think that's kind of what you were saying. It's not just the event that overwhelms the body and the ability to cope. But it's the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event. The same event, like you being in a car crash, can affect the 2 people differently based on a whole bunch of different factors. But it's not the event. Now, events can be traumatic or more likely to be traumatic. But when we say someone's been traumatized, we're not talking about the event, we're talking about their bodily state. And so it's being stuck in a defensive state of flight, shutdown, or freeze. We're going to go into every single one of these in a lot of detail. So it's being stuck. It's not just that you survived a thing, it's that now your body had to go into one of these defensive states, and that you're now stuck there. So that's what when I talk about trauma, that's what I mean. It's the response, and now you're stuck in this state. So sources of traumatic responses, these are things that will potentially lead to someone being in a traumatized state. One-time events like an accident, an injury, a violent attack, especially if it was unexpected or happened in childhood. So one-time event, something you survived, but then you got stuck in a defensive state. Or ongoing relentless stress, such as living in a crime-ridden neighborhood. I know Stockton, a lot of Stockton is crime-ridden neighborhood. Is that true for Fresno as well? Just driving through Fresno, it really reminded me of a lot of it. It reminded me of Stockton when I was seeing. Battling a life-threatening illness, or experiencing traumatic events that occur repeatedly, like bullying, domestic violence, or childhood neglect. So a one-time event or ongoing, relentless stress that you cannot fix or escape from. And then also commonly overlooked causes like surgery, the sudden death of someone close, the breakup of a significant relationship, or even the humiliating or deeply disappointing experience, especially if someone was deliberately cruel. I think the overlooked causes, these are things we wouldn't think about as traumatic, but especially the surgery one, I think people would probably dismiss. And I'm going to talk about that later on, but it's so benign, it's so very commonplace that we go in and have surgery and we walk out the same day. But surgery actually can be pretty traumatic. All right, so go to your phones. Rate your current level of comfort in understanding and working with someone who is in a traumatized state. It should be anonymous.
My screen says, what is your ACEs score?
That's what mine says.
Oh. Does it still say that?
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Oh.
Hopefully the next one works out. The Polyvagal Theory. Actually, does anyone want to comment? Like, who? Just raise your hands. Who feels extremely comfortable working with trauma? They got this. They got it nailed down. They can track someone in a traumatized state, and like they're good. So some hands, but no one shot up. Like, all right. So let's go more in depth into Polyvagal Theory. This is from Dr. Stephen Porges. It's been around since 1994, technically. I think it was at that time he presented in Bessel van der Kolk. He has this annual symposium, I forget the name of it, but I believe he presented there the Polyvagal Theory for the first time. So it's been around for quite a while. But it takes things a long time to get to us, to get to the front lines. It takes things quite a while to get to us. But really, it's the science of how mammals connect to each other and respond to cues of danger. That's a basic, there's a lot more to it, but that's the basic idea, is how do we connect? And if we're in danger, how do we respond to danger? To me, that's kind of what it boils down to. It has everything to do with the autonomic nervous system. So all this stuff. Oh, and by the way, even though I'm a therapist, I'm a talk therapist first and foremost, and I'm incorporating some of this stuff, but as I was delving deep into this, I had to kind of put a cap on what I was looking into. So looking into the biology of stuff, there's a whole ton of stuff out there, right? And so my wife she's a nurse, and as I was looking into this stuff, I was asking her questions like, what does this mean, what does this mean? And she goes, people go to school for this for like years, right? So the chances you're gonna understand it from the internet in a short amount of time is probably not gonna happen. So at that point, I'm like, you're right, I'll focus on the basics and then how to apply it to therapy and schools as well. So the autonomic nervous system, we're not gonna go super deep, but it is important to know that it controls the body's internal environment, such as breathing, heart rate, and digestion. And it's autonomic, so we don't choose to do these things. We actually can control and choose our breath, but everything else is kind of out of control. We don't really choose our heart rate, right? Like how fast our heart is beating. We don't choose that. We don't choose to digest. It just happens. It's all autonomic. These are not choices that we make. There's two main branches that I'm sure we've all heard of, which is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is when your motor gets going. That's that flight kind of stuff. Parasympathetic, I think we traditionally understand as slowing down, rest, digest, that kind of stuff. But it's not the full picture of it. There's actually more to it. That's the traditional understanding, but there's more to it than that we'll go into. And it's unconscious, like I said. We don't choose to do these things. It just happens. And at all moments, at all times, even right now, your autonomic nervous system is making shifts. So far, hopefully, I'm presenting as a safe person that's approachable, and so you're able to sit, listen, and be calm. If I did something that was socially inappropriate, you would have a reaction to that, right? You might get up and leave, like your system would kick in. So it's on at all times, it's constantly scanning the environment and shifting. But it's always in service of survival. If your heart rate picks up and you feel danger, it's because you've perceived, or your body's detected, threat. So it's always about survival. If our autonomic nervous system increases in activity out of danger, or even calms down because we feel safe, it's all about our perception or detection of threat in the environment. Okay? These are not choices that we make. It just happens completely out of our own almost completely out of our conscious will. So Stephen Porges is the creator of Polyvagal Theory. He works with a therapist who I'm very jealous of. Her name is Dana. She gets to work directly with him. And she wrote this book called Polyvagal Theory in Therapy, which I really recommend everyone read. And she created a lot of the concepts that I'm going to go into today. One of them is the Polyvagal ladder. And I got to interview actually Dr. Porges and Debian, and they're fantastic. Debian everyone loves her. She's amazing. So the polyvagal ladder is a metaphor for how our autonomic nervous system response circuitry is stacked. So the system for being safe and social, for making connections, is up here from our neck, this whole area, okay? And it connects to the heart as well. The circuitry for flight and fight, for getting in safety or fighting back, is in the torso, or actually chest area, that controls your arms and legs. The circuitry for shutting down and collapsing, going limp, is down here in your belly, basically. So the top of the ladder is safety, flight, fight, and then shut down, and we're going to go to all these things more. The biggest thing with the polyvagal theory, or one of the biggest things is that it lays out, is that it's a sequence of events. It's not a menu of options. So when people survive something, a lot of times we say, well, why didn't you fight back? And why didn't you do this? And it's almost as if they could choose. And it's simply not a choice. Now, I have heard police officers, they told me, no, we're trained to choose. And, all right, fine. But for the rest of us, it's not that simple. And actually, what I said to them was, you still have these reactions, and maybe you're trained on how to deal with them differently or how to ignore them, I guess. But for the most part, you still go through these sequences of events. And so do we. We don't choose to fight exactly. Our system just kicks in the fight instinct, right? But it has to go from the top of the ladder for being safe and social to flight first. and then fight, and then shut down. This is not something that we choose. It's a sequence of events that we all go through. And it's not flight or fight, it's flight, then fight. And when I describe this, especially to a lot of the girls I work with, they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly it, that's what I went through. And it makes complete sense to them just from that basic understanding. They're like, yeah, oh, and it's so normalizing. Take a deep breath. So I want to get you to do a decent baseline. We're going to go through hopefully some autonomic state shifts in a safe way, right here, right now, okay? So as you watch and listen to these, I want you just to focus on chest area, belly, focus on your face, what's happening up there, but really kind of be aware of these three kind of key areas, okay? And if you see, notice if you feel something. All right. Hopefully it works on your phone. Check your phone, please. Fingers crossed. Did it change?
Aces. Still the aces.
I tested this last night. That's so disappointing. I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Well, how'd you feel about that? Let's just talk about it. How'd you feel about that?
Certain parts of that stressed me out.
How do you know it stressed you out? What did you feel?
Like I was like cringing.
Yeah. Anybody else with her? Same? So describe the experience. Like, we know it's cringy, we know it stresses us out, but how do you know? Like, what tells you that you're stressed out or cringing?
I noticed that I was like holding my breath
Yes.
almost in some
Okay.
parts.
Yeah.
Same.
Holding my
I felt like a little bit anxiety, like
Yeah.
here's some little, I can't explain it. But
Is
just
it
some-
sort of like anticipation?
Yeah, like
Yeah. Anybody else similar sort of experiences? I feel, since the darn polls don't work, extreme disappointment down here. I'm like, oh. So, anybody else did anyone have no reaction to that whatsoever? You don't have to say anything, but I'm just kind of curious. Anyone have zero reaction? All of our nervous systems are different. And I think some things are more likely to have a reaction, but it's not a guarantee whatsoever. All right, take a deep breath again. I know why it doesn't work. Can we take a 5-minute break? I figured out I want to fix this. All right, let's do a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
All right, check your phones. How do you feel about the tickle guy there?
There we go. Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that. So, if you were not okay with the tickle guy, how do you know? Like, what told you that you weren't okay with that? What did your body do? How did you react?
Kind of turns away. I mean, I had to look away.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have the same experience? Of like wanting to like just be away? How does it feel though? So that's the experience of my space is invaded. But what's the experience? Like, what's the feeling of it? What's your body? Was it down here or up here for you?
It was more up here.
More up here?
It felt like everything was pulling up, like, get up and go.
Yeah, there you go. Anything else? Seems like most people had a similar reaction. Some people were like, not an issue for them. For me, and I had the speaker right behind my head, it felt like someone was back there. And, well, I mean, the speaker was, but like, it feels like someone's whispering in my ear, and that's, of course, an invasion of privacy. And to me, it's like I want to like curl inward like that way, because the sounds from behind me. All right, one more. Does that cleanse the palate from a tickle bit? All right, how do you feel about the dancing palm? I don't know if you can hear it, but there was actually music in the background. So most people don't want this to end. It's gives you this feeling of what? What did you experience while you were watching that?
Joy.
Joy? What does joy feel like? How do you know it was joy? Smiling, okay. It makes you smile, yeah. What else? Involuntary laughter. Do you ever volunteer to laugh? Do you? Did you choose to laugh right there, or did it just happen?
It just happened. But when my daughter tells a joke, it's not
We got that on
That is
camera.
true. That is true. So, any other experiences? Did you feel like a lightning? For me, it's like this lightning. Like I just lived. No.
I felt a warm, like a warm
A
comfort.
warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were dancing. Yeah. I felt
Fearful.
like-
What do you
It's like
mean?
the scissors.
Oh.
It's like dangerous. Don't do that.
Don't move while I'm petting.
It's so interesting how we can see the same thing and generally have the same reactions, but we'll pick up on one thing versus another, and it'll stick with us. And we'll talk a lot more about this stuff. So this is what, actually let me ask you, and we already kind of talked about this, did you notice a change in your breathing during these 4 different videos?
Yes.
Did you notice your body movements change? Did you notice that your eye contact, everyone was watching, but your ability to make eye contact, did you look at anyone and like laugh together? Or look away from people, or sort of hide within yourself with your eyes? Did you notice any changes like that throughout the videos? Yeah? So on the outside looking in, so I'm on the outside looking in, that's how I view this. I heard a lot of voice changes as well. That even before we played the Tickle Man, like people were like, oh my God. And your voice dropped, like you lost access to having, oh no, it's horrible. But there were changes. And as we were watching the more uncomfortable ones, your faces went pretty flat. It was like eyes wide open, just flat face. Your affect was gone in that moment. And your ability to use more vocal inflections was gone in that moment where you said, oh my God. Like it went down. None of this stuff we chose, right? Our bodies simply made these adjustments in the moment that we did not control. Now you could notice you're uncomfortable and mask it and like put on a happy face maybe, but that feeling is still there, right? And it's something as simple as this. So that brings us to our autonomic state. Basically, we're either in our safe social state, flight, fight, or our shutdown state. It is much more complex than this, but for the purposes of dialogue and presenting, to break it down into these states makes it a lot easier. And when we talk with students about this makes a lot of sense to them. It does get more complex, and we'll talk about that. But basically, that's kind of where we are. Our state is a reaction to the outside world, whether it be like a video, or a stranger on the street, or a noise in the environment, like in class. It's a reaction to our internal world. So my knee has been busted for like the past week, and that affects that pain. That's fine right now. But that pain affects my state. I'm not going to be super smiley and connected if I'm in pain, right? But also our perceptions of the world. So the way that we view the world is going to affect our autonomic nervous system state. There's a caveat. But our autonomic state also becomes the filter that we experience the world through. If we are in a safe and social place, we're going to experience the world in a much different way than someone who's stuck in a flight-fight state. And that they're going to experience the world in a much different place than someone who's stuck in a shutdown place. The way that we experience the world significantly changes. And the triggers of this is often unpredictable. Like I'm going to use an example again. Everyone, for the most part, we watch this and was like, cute dog dancing, right? But I couldn't predict that someone would have a reaction to the scissors or whatever. There's so many of these things are unpredictable. And if you work with students or in clients in therapy in general, the things from their past that trigger them now, there's no way we can guess all those things. Some stuff maybe, but like certain smells, you're not going to be able to guess those things because those things are associated with past traumas, past state shifts. There's a new word Dr. Portis came up with to describe something I don't think we had a concept of before called neuroception. This is the body's ability to detect risk outside of conscious awareness. It shifts the body up and down the polyvagal ladder to those different states, safety, flight, fight, or shutdown. And as the body moves down the ladder, we lose access to the behaviors higher up the ladder. So when I saw everyone with the Tickle Man, and you drop down, most people drop down the ladder, you lost access to your ability to use your safe and social behaviors at the top of your polyvagal ladder. Does that make sense? It was gone. Like in that moment, it was gone. You did not have access to it. Your circuitry, your biology did not have access to that. But when you dropped down the ladder, it unlocked defensive behaviors in order to survive. In that moment, you were not actually in danger, but your biology you neurocepted enough danger to actually make you drop down the ladder. Heart rate may have picked up a little bit. Breathing may have become more shallow. Flat. I know everyone's face went pretty flat. So you neurocepted enough danger to unlock the ability to run away. Your resources were now being used to run away. Not that I'm glad no one got to run away, but your body was preparing for running away or hiding. The three states unlock different behaviors. So being in your safe and social system unlocks pro-social behaviors, and that's where we want kids to. We want everyone to be. But when we work with kids in classrooms, a lot of that has to do with appropriate behaviors, getting along with others, cooperating, doing your schoolwork, using cognitive or critical thinking, problem solving. But we don't have access to that unless we're at the top of our ladder. Period. That's it. If you're down the ladder, you simply don't have access to that. As you were watching the Tickle Man, if I asked you to do 25 plus 33, you probably would have stopped longer than if I asked you in your safe and social place. Fight unlocks evasion or aggression, so running away or using your arms and upper body to push or fight back. And then shutdown unlocks the survival capability of collapsing. It's not, these are all survival based. These increase our chances of surviving. But we lose access to the behaviors associated with safety again. As we move down the ladder, we lose access to those behaviors. To get back to the top of the ladder, we have to go through each state. So if we're way down in our shutdown, collapsed, dissociated place, we don't get to be like, all right, I'm good, and we're back up to our safe and social place. It doesn't work that way. We actually have to go through fight, and then flight, and then safety. That doesn't mean you have to actually fight someone. And that doesn't mean you have to actually run away from someone or something. So in therapy, I don't expect my clients to fight. I really don't want them to fight me or anybody else. But that energy, when they come out of shutdown, that energy for fighting is absolutely there. So the issue is not how we fight it off, it's how do we use this energy? It doesn't have to be through fighting. But we have to go through each and every step. How many people, think about everyone you've worked with that has like severe depression going on, that's a very shut down kind of place, right? When we talk about someone who's depressed and like low motivation, but not as therapists, but as friends and family, what do we tell them? Like, you have to get angry about something, right? So we tell, like, isn't that kind of a message we give people is like, you just have to get angry, right? Like, you just have to get motivated. And that makes sense because that's the next step from shutdown. The next step is fighting. And that feels like anger, or it feels like power, or like dominance. So in therapy, when I work with people who are in a depressed state, I used to see them go into those flight energies and it freaked me out. I'd be like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Now I know that's the next step. Now when they go from depression from a shutdown to fight, I'm excited for them. I'm with them, like, let's do this, let's go. And how do we do this in a safe way? Little by little. And before it freaked me out. The autonomic nervous system is use dependent. It adapts based on the needs of survival. If you need to exist in a flight state to get your needs met, your nervous system is going to become use dependent around that. That's what, same thing with fight, same thing with shutdown. If you have to be in a more dissociative place to survive or get your needs met, you're going to exist in that state.
Can we go back one?
Yeah.
So at the beginning you said you have to do the fight and the flight.
Fight, then flight.
Fight, then
If you're working your way back up the polyvagal ladder, yeah.
fight, then flight. So when they come out of shutdown, they have to still do the fight and then flight?
Mm-hmm.
Both, they have to do both.
Typically, yeah, with the energy for it. It doesn't mean that they run away or fight. But when you come out of shutdown, there's a lot of times there's a surge of like sympathetic energy, like power and fight. And so that's what it is. They don't actually fight.
Right.
But how can we use this energy in fidgets? And we'll talk about this as we go on.
Okay.
But using that energy in an appropriate way, in a safe way, little by little, is ideally how we go. Not all at once, let's get up and fight something. It's more like, can we use this fidget to like release the energy, and we'll kind of get through more.
And then what would the flight part look like in a safe way?
What I've seen is we don't get up and run around. It's sometimes they'll like tap their leg, shake their leg while they're talking to me. And so, if you're anxious and you're in a lecture, a lot of people probably do that. That's that flight energy. You're not actually running away, but the energy's still there. And so what I do is I help them bring mindfulness to it.
Okay.
And so once not like once we're just doing it, but like if we can be aware of it and the experience of that can help discharge the energy. If you want to learn, the place to go for that is somatic experiencing and Peter Levine. He's phenomenal with this stuff. A lot of this has to do with mindfulness, and that's why I asked everyone when we watched those videos, like you said, that my experience was feeling safe, or my experience was joy, or whatever. That's why I said, but how do you know? Like, what is the experience of that? I want you to connect your conscious awareness to your body sensations. And that's what helps the energy kind of go through. So if the nervous system becomes use dependent, we have to get our needs met by being in flight, fight, or shutdown. This can become dangerous to ourselves or others. Kids that go to school who come from homes where they have to be in more of a fight state, that's their way of being. That's how they get their needs met. That's what you're going to see in school, more or less. There's an idea, again, from Deb Dana. It's called home away from home. In my interview with her, she mentioned this. And ideally, our home is in our safe and social state. But that's simply not true for a lot of us to be there often, I guess. A lot of us don't exist in that place very often. So a lot of us have a home away from home. My home away from home is shut down. I feel extremely comfortable by myself in my room, in the office downstairs. I'm good. I can do that for a long time. Talking in front of people I feel pretty comfortable with too, but this is different for my nervous system. This is a challenge. So it's realizing like what is your home away from home and how do you maximize that? So I give myself permission at the end of the night to like hang out in my office in my little chair in the corner, do some breathing and come up my polyvagal ladder. That's how I at the end of the day, after dealing with traumas and potential crises and having a couple kids, you know, if I need some downtime, that I know my nervous system needs that. So I let it happen. It's not because I'm defective or a ball. My nervous system exists in more of a shutdown place. Go ahead.
Will this be available for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to share this,
So
absolutely.
we don't have to.
I would prefer, honestly, I would prefer that you listen and take it in, but that's how I learn. I don't do well, usually I draw while I listen. But if you want to fidget or just kick back and listen, whatever works best for you. If you work best by writing notes, write notes. But yeah, I'm happy to send the whole thing to Angie or to Rachel and to disperse it. If that's okay.
Okay, sure.
It's a lot of information. So there's such a thing as healthy and unhealthy neuroception. Neuroception is our ability to detect risk or safety, and then to shift up and down the ladder based on that. Healthy neuroception is the body detects and shifts to the appropriate autonomic nervous system state based on the environment. Pretty simple, right? Make sense? Okay. The body uses social behavior in a safe environment. So ideally, a classroom is a safe environment. I know it's not always that case, but ideally, it's a safe environment in that we're able to use our social engagement skills. The body does not use defenses like fighting or fleeing unless it's actually in danger. So again, classroom is it should be a safe environment, but a lot of kids are not accessing the top of their ladder, and they're in that they're in that flight place. Unhealthy neuroception is when the body does not accurately detect or shift based on the environment. So it's really the opposite. The body does not fight or flee when it's unsafe. The body does not use social behavior in a safe environment. I think about the girls that I work with. My mind always goes to the teen girls I work with for some reason. I'm very worried about them. But they pick horrible relationships over and over and over again. Or the wrong people are attracted to them. It's just not a good mix. But they're not picking up on the danger cues. And when they talk to me about the boy or whoever it is, in my mind I'm like, that's a red flag, that's a red flag, that's a red flag. But they're not picking up on those danger cues. They have unhealthy neuroception. They're down the ladder. They're not able to pick up on danger cues. So this is a very common scenario that I've worked with. Mother with a history of sexual abuse from her stepfather and a long history of abusive relationships. She has 3 children, all with different fathers who are not part of their lives. Mother is constantly in a fight state. She allows men to sleep over and leaves them alone with the children when she goes to work. Any red flags for you? How do you know? How do you know? What's the red flag feel like for you? Did anybody feel something right here? Like, did you feel like kind of mobilized a little bit? Pretend, but like, did you feel something? That mom is not picking that up. She's not getting that. So what's preventing her from detecting those red flags? It's the unhealthy neuroception. It's just that simple. She has unhealthy neuroception, which came from, well, where did it come from? She probably had to survive in some sort of shutdown or maybe fight place. She may have survived in a shutdown place and is coming out of that into a fight place, but has no idea what to do with that energy. And so she exists there day to day. Is there any use dependency going on here? Did her nervous system adapt based on the needs of survival? Probably. She's just simply stuck there for now. But this is an issue of she's not picking up on the danger. This clearly for all of us who are ideally in a safe and social place, we see this and we're like, no, terrible idea, no. But for this mom, that's not there. That danger cue is simply not there. Story follows state. Again, Deb Dana, she's phenomenal. And this is in her book in a lot more depth. And in my interview with her, we go way into this. But when state shifts occur, we create a story or a narrative to explain the experience and the state shift. Our brains are a meaning-making machine. That's what they're doing. Like there's all this stuff going from the body up, and from the top down, our brain places meaning onto things. It looks for patterns. It looks for ways to survive next time. What can I learn from this situation for the next time? So it's meaning-making. It's going to place meaning onto the situation. So if you survive a sexual assault, I shouldn't have done whatever. I deserve the way I was treated, whatever it is. It's going to come up with explanations. The explanations are not necessarily true. Like the stuff we hear about, like I shouldn't have been in that place, I shouldn't have worn that thing, those typical kind of things we hear about, that's nonsense. That's not true whatsoever, right? But our brain is looking for an explanation. It's looking to explain what happened to us for the next time. And what's really sad is that if we're in a shutdown place, the explanations we come up with are going to be very shut down. They're going to be very blameful and judgeful and all about negative about us. If we're in a safe and social place and we look back at those situations, it's going to be a much different explanation. A much different story. But this also becomes the filter. Our autonomic nervous system, it also influences our stories throughout the day. So how we view a situation will differ based on what state we're in, kind of like I just said. Our state will influence the beliefs and judgments we have about ourselves and others. If we're in a safe and social place, we're going to think pretty good of ourselves, I think. We're going to see the value that we have in ourselves. Our stories about ourselves will change. But if we're in more of a shutdown place, it's going to be extremely negative, very pessimistic, very low value, worthless kind of judgments and thoughts. So for the kids in school, the teacher hates me, there's no point in trying. That's why I'm shut down. They're coming up with explanations because of that person. Not because of the stuff they've been through, but it's because of that person. So day to day, that state affects their stories about the stuff that happens throughout the day. Or the blank keeps staring at me. That's why I'm ready to fight. Not because of what's going on at home, not because of whatever else, but the thing I survived is because that person's staring at me. And this is something that I hear all the time. Is this true for those of us directly in schools with kids? Like the staring issue, the blank stare, the neutral face, it's a huge issue. Very triggering. All right, so we're going to watch a clip here. It's a few minutes. What I want you to listen for are stories. What stories did you hear? Did you pick up on any stories in there from, by the way, who watches The Office? Oh. All right. What stories did you pick up on in there? First off, did we see a state shift? Did we see them mobilize?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did they mobilize? What was their story for mobilizing? Michael came up out of his office and he was walking, but he was using his flight system to get to the pretzel, right? Michael came out of his office. Why? Why did he come out? What was his story? What was the explanation?
Because the first guy?
What was that?
Was it the first guy?
It was Michael who was in his office. He was the boss at the time. He was in his office and came out.
Because he kept thinking about
Yeah.
it.
He couldn't get anything done. He's like, I mobilized because I can't get anything done until I get the pretzel. That was his story, that was his explanation for what he did. Did Stanley have any stories?
It was the one solace of his life.
This is the biggest thing in my life right now. He placed a lot of value on the pretzel, right? Anything else? How about when Phyllis tried to hug her husband? What was the story there? Cutting line, yeah. You saw like Michael was okay, he was standing in line, he was okay. And then he saw that and he went, whoa, like his system kicked in, right? And his explanation was, you're cutting in line, you're threatening what I need in this moment. You're trying to cut in line. That was his story. Was it true? Probably not. But that's what it looks like. Those are stories. Any questions about stories or narratives that we come up with? These are involuntary. And it's not just explanations, but it could be images, it could be past things that pop up in our brain when we feel certain ways or around certain things. It's not just a narrative, it could also be just images that fly through our head. All right, so just in your small groups, here's the situation. Hispanic male, 17 years old, enters your school wellness center. I don't know if you have those here, or comes to you looking for help. Saying he wants to kill himself. He says he is tired of the racism he's receiving from his peers in class. What physical reactions do you have in the scenario? What stories do you have? What images, explanations, or beliefs? So that mobilizes you to focus on, these are my steps.
Yes.
All right? No right answer, no wrong answer, right? Everyone has different experience. So this actually happened where I was at a high school seeing someone else, and I happened to be there, and it's not my client, but a student walked in, Hispanic male, 7 years old, and he said he wanted to kill himself. So when I hear that, I get a little sympathetically charged, but I'll admit, I get excited because I like crisis for some reason. So I'm like, let's go. And so I get excited. And I start thinking about, the documentation and all that stuff as well, but I like crisis. And so, but then he said the explanation, and then the image that popped into my mind had an image of 3 white students picking on him in the middle of class. That's just what popped in my mind for whatever reason, right? And it was not just me, there was also the front desk, I think she's a social worker, but she was more of a front desk, like intake kind of person, did some counseling as well. But she was there, and we thought, he wasn't actually suicidal, he wasn't actually going to kill himself. But we had someone we could connect him with, which was another Hispanic male, older guy, had a very cool, like Edward James almost kind of feel to him. Just this cool vibe, you'd like to be around the guy, right? He'd been working there for years and years and years and years. And we thought, let's connect him with this person for some next steps. And so he came in and he explained the racism piece of it. And so, in my mind, it was like 2 white males picking on him in the middle of class. And I think it was for the same for the front desk receptionist. She was also white. And I think the same thing popped into her mind or something similar. But as we were talking, she goes, wait, hold on a second. There's like 5 white kids in the school. Who are you talking about? And it's true, it's a hugely Hispanic-dominated population in the school. But she had more, even though I was familiar with the school, she pulled from a different data thing than I did. I was just focused on my image. And honestly, a lot of it was like, I was sitting there to be charged, like I wanted to help. But at the same time, I felt this pit of like, oh, come on. So I heard racism and I assumed white. And so I was like, oh, come on. Like it was this disappointment in me. And so but then she asked, like, there's 5 white kids, what are you talking about? Like, what white, she didn't say it this way, but well, white kids are picking on you in the middle of class because they're hugely outnumbered, and he goes, no, it wasn't white kids. And I'm like, so then my mind went blank, he goes, it was other Hispanic kids. And I'm like, what? Racism? And so he explained to me, I don't know if it's similar for Fresno, but he goes, first generation, or immigrants to the United States, compared to people born in the United States, there's a huge divide there. And he called that racism. And I know this because I work with kids in gangs. The Sureños are more often than not immigrants from Mexico, or less acculturated, I guess I'll say. Probably not born here, but maybe. And Norteños are typically born here or have been here for a few generations. And there's a huge divide as far as the acculturation piece of it, and that's a big, big divide between the 2 groups. And so for him, he called that racism. And the man that we were with, the Edward James Olmos character, he was like, he knew exactly what he was talking about. Before he even said that, he was just kind of sitting back, like nodding his head, like he knew exactly what he was talking about. And so I was shocked. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess, all right. And the man in the room was like, I dealt with that 40 years ago when I was a student here. You'll deal with it now, it'll probably be an issue in the near future. But he knew exactly, so all of our stories were a little bit different. And my story was wrong, I was just incorrect. The front desk social worker person, her story was at first incorrect, and then she asked for more information because she was insightful enough to do that. I was just going with my story. If I had just gone with my story, it may not have helped the situation more. She asked for more information, got a step closer to the actual story, and then we had connected him with someone who knew exactly what he was talking about, had lived it, could speak to it, brought the mom in, talked about it, and they knew exactly. It was all just, they were on the same page. But stories, you don't choose these things, they simply pop in your head. And if you just stick with them, they might be wrong. It's just something to be aware of. They could easily be wrong. How we doing? Let's do a little break. It's a good time for a break.